Welcome to the Shootin The Que podcast, presented by Heath Riles Barbecue, with tips, tricks, and an inside look with some of the top pitmasters in the game. Now here's your host, Heath Riles.
All right, we are back for another episode of Shootin The Que, and of course we are joined by my lovely wife, Candace. And today we have a special guest in house, Mr. Randall Bowman. How you doing today?
I don't know if I'm special. I mean, is that a good special or?
Well, you can predetermine that however you want to.
I didn't ride a little bus, so.
You rode the long bus?
I rode the big bus.
Well, that's all good. So for everybody that does not know Randall, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of are in this whole barbecue world?
Well, I kind of joke. I'm kind of in barbecue 24/7 and have been for, 20 years now at this point, I guess. I started out just as a hobby cooking barbecue, and then my other businesses kind of molded themselves to kind of get ingrained inside barbecue, and it's just kind of gone from there. I don't know if there's an aspect of barbecue I've not been involved in some form or fashion over the last 20 years. So it's been a heck of a ride.
So what did you do before you got into barbecue?
I had a marketing company. Actually, we were doing food. We were doing food vending and events we were doing right before that. But I have a marketing company that I've had for 30 years. I was in the health club business for years. We had motocross parks and private security companies and all kinds of different things went on before that. But had an auto accident in 2003 and was hospitalized for a while I had a shattered hip, a broken pelvis, an arm and ankle and all kinds of things. Those that know me know I have a pretty substantial limp, and I kind of tell everybody I'm lucky to be alive, much less limping, so I'll take that all day. But that kind of had me down for a while and a little less active, and I had always had barbecue as a kind of a family thing. Growing up in the South, you guys know what barbecue and Sunday family dinners and things like that are like. So it just kind of grew from there. Kind of got ingrained in watching stuff, on YouTube. We didn't have pitmasters and things like that on TV back then, but internet was just kind of coming out. You could, if you searched well enough, you could find some stuff. Lots of books and lots of playing around with cooking barbecue while I was at home. So it just kind of grew from there.
Cool. So did you kind of got your career started, though. Did you not play baseball?
I played baseball for a few years, many eons ago at this point. I was in the Colorado Rockies organization. They had a team with the Florida Marlins the year before they became expansion teams through Georgia called the Georgia Cherokees, and I played with them. I like to tell everybody that I lived a lot of life at a really early age. That was one of the experiences I got to experience that I regretfully probably screwed up with bad decisions.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we've all had those types of decisions as well. So what position did you play?
I was a catcher.
Catcher.
Yep. I know most people think I was a football player, but that's not true. I was not.
Well, somebody's got to be the catcher.
Yeah.
So doing that, and then you kind of converted over to building. Tell us how Deep South Smokers was kind of born and how you got started with that.
So, after cooking barbecue contest and kind of, as we all talk about, becoming part of that barbecue family, I looked at, Jambo Pitts and Jamie Geer, and at that time, we didn't have the Outlaws and the Stumps and all the other people out there, and I always wondered why gravity feds were just kind of becoming more popular. They were a set it and forget it, and you can kind of sleep all night, and kind of a dummy-proof way to cook. And I always wondered why there was no real quality being put into it, no craftsmanship, no customization. Because, shark painting pits for Jamie Geer, you could get, $4,000 and $5,000 paint jobs and flame and airbrush and some really cool stuff. And, everything was just so sleek and it looked so great. And there wasn't anybody doing that in the other models. I mean, nothing's wrong with the other models. They just weren't, to me.
Just a barbecue grill.
Yeah, they were just smoker. They weren't, nothing special. And to me, it wasn't a higher end product. And that's really how it started. I couldn't find one, so I decided to hire a welder and build one. And we just kind of grew from there. It really started as building stuff for myself and then building stuff for a team that was a friend or another team that was a friend. And then eventually that kind of took over and became a business of its own. So, we worked with you for years. What was that, 10, 12, 13 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't even remember how did we first met? Do you remember?
I think it was Mitchell, strangely enough.
Probably.
I wonder how many people have met each other through Mitchell over the years.
I don't know. And he's introduced me to a lot of people over in Georgia and other areas of the world. I mean, we kind of cross and now have both helped each other. Now, ironically, he works for us.
Yeah. It's a tiny world. It really is. But I mean, I was fortunate in the opportunities that barbecue has given, and being able to found Deep South Smokers and build it to where it was, and honestly going on my terms when I did last year, to me was a blessing. I don't know what'll happen with Deep South Smokers. I'm not giving up on that, and we're certainly keep all the rights to all that, and don't have any plans to let that leave us anytime soon.
Well, I know you was having problems finding welders, and basically, I mean, I'm just going to take a guesstimate, but I'm sure it was taking a toll on you trying to do all the welding and all the work on a lot of the smokers yourself.
Well, and that's not me. I didn't grow up as a welder, and I didn't go to trade school to learn how to weld, and what we did was even so much more than welding. And I tell everybody, I'm very fortunate to live in the community I live in, but Forsyth County, for those of you who don't know, is about 45 minutes north of Atlanta, and it is, for lack of a better term, it's a pretty affluent suburb. I mean, you drive around there now, and every home is starting in the mid-700s, and that's just not conducive to, house painters and landscapers and welders. And, regardless of what we paid, which was always on the upper scale, you can't get a welder that drives an hour to work and passes 10,000 other jobs to stick very long. And we were fortunate. We had some that stuck with us for a while, but it never could get over the hump where it really needed to stay fully staffed. And, I felt like it was becoming such a drain and keeping me away from everything. And that was never my goal. I've been fortunate to be able to do what I want to do and not have to do things. And I was having to do that, and that's not where I wanted to be. With everything else that's gone on since then, it was very fortunate timing that we'd made the decision. And actually, one of the guys had been with me for about 6 years. His family had moved back to Florida, and he came to me one day and said he was thinking about moving. And I thought, oh, this is like the final straw. And it's coincidental, Amanda and I had been talking about our next move. And I said, well, sit down, let's chat. What's your time frame look like? So we just kind of coordinated together. Yep. So it was divine intervention. It just kind of happened and worked out the way it needed to.
Well, I know I had been over there the last several times when I had gotten one of the last gravity feds from you, and I think y'all mounted in the trailer, and I could tell you were kind of stressed. And
oh, yeah.
Y'all had so much going on, so many smokers going out and coming in, and it's just a non-revolving door, and you're trying to handle a marketing business and go to deal with events and fly to events. And
so many irons in the fire, I felt like I was neglecting all of them. And sitting down, I had to look at what was the biggest issue, and it was the smoker building aspect of things. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, we had supply chain issues. I mean, there were just a lot of complicated matters. And I think everybody's gone grocery shopping and seen inflation. I mean, cost of goods have gone way up the last few years, and that last, end of 2022 into 2023 became financially really difficult. And unfortunately, with a $7,000-8,000 smoker, it's not like you can just double the price tomorrow to make up for all your costs being doubled. So you end up working on the back end to try to figure out margins, and you don't want to cut corners. I mean, we could have easily cut some corners, but it wouldn't have been the same product. Yeah. And that's not what we ever wanted to do.
Well, talking about product, what was your favorite model that you ever built?
I really liked a 36, a GC 36. The chamber was 36 inches wide. But to me, I was not looking at catering and food vending and everything. To me, that was the perfect size for a 4-meat or a 3-meat competition, because you could cook, and if timelines didn't hit right, you still were okay having an extra meat on there. It didn't affect things a lot.
36. I got to say 42 was my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, but the first time I ever used one of those cookers, you remember me and Delbert come over to your shop?
I did. You did a class in that was at least 10 years ago.
Over 10.
Yeah.
I think it's been 11 or 12.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I remember that.
Does Delbert still have his smoker?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. he's got a 42. He originally had your first 42 that you got from us, and then we redid it, and then we just built him a new one.
Painted it blue
a few years
for
ago.
him.
Yeah, and then we just built him a new one. We replaced it with a new one a few years ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's still a cooking machine.
We've made some models that are really cool. The chopper model was really cool.
I remember when we done that.
Yeah, lots more bells and whistles.
I remember when that was came.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that was up in McMinnville.
Yep. It was Donnie Bray is really where that came from. It was the pit box toolboxes for NASCAR is where the whole idea came from. So, but I mean, there was a time we had Tommy Houston and Donnie Bray and you and Jim Berg, and I mean, a lot of the heavy hitters were kind of on our roster cooking. And barbecue smokers are kind of fickle. The judges change flavor profiles of what they like. So, drums got real popular because it's a more grilled taste. Offset, same way. Hot and fast became real popular. Gravity feds, in my personal opinion, don't lend themselves to hot and fast like offsets and drums do.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it's still not. It's just not the same flavor profile that comes off of it. To me, a gravity fed was always
low and slow.
And it was somewhere in the middle between pellet cookers and offsets. It was a happy medium between it.
I've never seen another grill cook as consistent as far as like shoulders and not have to touch them. It's just like I could tell you what to do, and if you couldn't execute it, I don't know what's wrong. I mean, it's literally the like cakewalk science of.
I tell everybody, customers that buy them for backyards, we're buying them for backyards. I say, really, when you put a control device on it, if you can light a fire and punch a couple of buttons, that's all you got to do.
That is it.
And then if you screw it up from there, that's on you.
That's right. Well, that brings me into competition barbecue.
Yeah.
Kind of tell me what made you kind of get into competition barbecue from all that. You enjoyed cooking backyard, but what made you make that transition over to that?
I think it's that competitive nature. I'm a fat middle-aged dude. And I can't buy a NASCAR team and start and. Baseball was over, and I think I get competitive with my GPS when I'm traveling. If I can beat that time there.
I think that's all of us on that.
I mean, as we get older, that's the big challenge is, I'm not getting there at 1:30. I'm getting there before that. So I think it's the same way. I think, just feeling that competitive spirit and finding ways to stay hungry and moving forward.
So go ahead.
Have you only competed in KCBS, or have you competed in?
No, we've done World Food. I really I really enjoy unsanctioned stuff now.
Yeah.
Because I really think some of the sanctioning bodies got too big for themselves over the last few years, and I'm as guilty as anybody. Well, I bought 40-foot trailers and needed 50-foot spots, and if you're not giving away X amount of money, I ain't going. And
I think the SCA kind of broke that for everybody.
I think the SCA and I think shorter cooks are becoming more popular. And I think that competition barbecue priced itself out of the average guy. I've said for years, I don't know how a guy with a 9-to-5 job can cook a barbecue contest. Because, I remember 10 years ago it was $800 a weekend, and it's double that at least now. Everybody's cooking Wagyu briskets and heritage breed pork and air chilled chicken, and we're buying the best rubs and spices we can get our hands on, and even charcoal. It's not, people aren't going and buying blue bags at Lowe's on Memorial Day weekend when you get 2 bags for $4 or whatever that sale is. You look at some of the higher end, craft style things out there, and that's what people are going for. So it's just become such an expensive thing. I look at these unsanctioned local things. John Hale, who is a really good friend that I met through barbecue.
Oh, I love John Hale.
Yeah, he's a character.
Trip.
But he runs a couple of these unsanctioned small VFW things, give backs, charitable things that kind of draw at the heartstrings and bring me back to where it was when I started and what I like. And he did a thing in a little town, Adairsville, outside of Cartersville. They had 24 teams, and they cooked 3 meats and turned it in, and it was like a smaller, it looked like a sanctioned contest, but it was just an unsanctioned thing, and raised some money for the VFW hall and had a good time. So
that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do a chili contest or something like that.
Yeah.
Or just maybe another one-day event. I've cooked plenty of SCA events in my early on years. I don't know. I'm just wanting to do something different. I don't know why.
Yeah. I visited the chili championship in Myrtle Beach a couple of years ago, and was intrigued. It's an interesting world.
6-foot table, pop-up tent, couple chairs, cooler.
Show up that morning with a butane burner and.
Yeah,
Did they still have a section in World Food Championship chili like they used? I know they used to.
They changed it to soup, but it's still really chili. I think you'll see that come back. Mike McLeod, who owns MMA Creative, which was the founder of World Food Championship, bought ICS a couple years ago from Carol Hancock. So I think you'll see that mold back in a little bit. And World Food, we do this program through Famous Dave's. It's chicken ribs and chicken wing, or in wild card you can do whatever you want, and then you give out chicken wings as people's choice samples. But the teams can't get there till 7 Saturday morning, and then awards are 5 that afternoon. I like the concept of that quick, easy, and out they get like a 10 by 15 space. Yep. A little bit more if they need it, but no electricity is provided. It's designed back to when we showed up with an easy up and a smoker. But it to me it's a neat concept. I think we got to get back to some of these roots to make these events successful for locals to work. I mean, we all know you go to a barbecue contest and the biggest complaint is that, you had 100 teams that get to eat barbecue. And,
that's right.
There's so many variables around that the public doesn't understand between health department and other rules and regulations. And asking a team that has spent $2,000 to be there that weekend who's competing for this prize or these points or these to, take time and give out samples is also, it's hard to warrant asking that. So it's tough. That's, to me, why these local things are going to be successful.
Key to success.
Yeah.
Well, and what we've seen, there's a local thing around here called the Hot Wing Festival, and they've kind of tied it into the Ronald McDonald House. Is that right now?
I believe it is.
And
was.
KCBS is sanctioning it, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Now, years ago, we used to cook it probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
15,
it wasn't that long.
20, but it was 15 plus.
But now it's always falls on the same weekend.
When we start talking about
else.
20 years ago, we're telling people how old we are.
I know. They don't,
First of all, I'm not that old.
Time goes quick.
And I haven't even known you for 20 years. So
no,
it wasn't that long ago.
But I cooked it before you, too.
Fine then.
He let you out on that one.
You were alive before me.
Yeah, I was, unfortunately. Long time.
Yeah,
long
let's
time.
not
So my wife is 9 years younger than me, and she says, well, when we were growing up, I said, hey, I grew up before you did.
Well, he's 7 years older than I am, so
Feels like
similar.
an eternity. For sure. So going on from competition barbecue, and you kind of vaguely hit on the World Food Championship.
Yeah.
Well, before I get to that, I got to know, competition barbecue, what was your favorite contest you ever went to? Some of your favorite.
Man, there's so many that I absolutely love. I'm looking at trophies on the wall, and I'm just thinking Galax was such a cool contest. Memphis in May has always been a cool contest. What I always admired about Memphis in May, I think one of the first years I came to hang out with you, you had Tommy Houston, Bob Trudneck, Mitchell, you, Jim Berg, who just won the Sam's Club National Championship, and there were a handful of other guys. And I'm thinking, man, you've got Grand Champion winners, putting cookie platters out for catering. just so they can hang out. I'm like, and then you go to, the booth next to you, and it's like, Pat Burke's got 3 or 4 other people hanging out with him, and, Chris Lilly's got his team with him, and, but all these guys, the crossover that happened at Memphis in May was always cool. I never understood the animosity of sanctioning bodies of, we can't associate with you because you're this and that. I remember when I was running marketing for KCBS, I called a contest in Lockhart, Texas, to take the Great American Cookout Tour to, and the guy said, well, you're KCBS. Why do you want to come here? I said, I don't care what time you turn stuff in. That means nothing to me. I said, you cook barbecue, right? He said, yeah. I said, you're in Lockhart, Texas, right? He said, yeah. And finally, we got it worked out, and he said, yeah, bring it. And it was one of the coolest experiences to go to Lockhart, with the KCBS trailer and be able to do demos for the brand partners and kind of do that crossover thing. I just, rising tides rise all ships, and I just think that everybody needs
Texas definitely, barbecue is like a mecca.
It is a
Texas.
whole different thing in Texas. No, and you look at, and there's, Fred Robles with the sanctioning body, he started. It's doing great things. IBCA strong. I mean, all these organizations, I think they've got 3 really big sanctioning bodies just in Texas alone. Mm-hmm. And CBA is actually kind of spreading out. They're doing a thing in South Carolina in June. That's like a $25,000 prize purse. It's a pretty good contest. with the minor league team that's there. So it's a pretty cool little deal. But I think everybody needs to play nice in the sandbox. We all cook ribs in parking lots. It's not like we're solving world crisis and hungers. I mean, really,
Sending rockets to the moon. I tell people that all the time. I think people sometimes get too worked up in things.
We dealt with products too. People used to talk about smokers. I mean, you switch to an outlaw, and everybody thought this was like a huge, like, big deal. And I'm like, it's a product. It's not what people want to make it out to be. And I never understood that. There seemed to be this underlying misconception of sponsored teams and all these things.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, and I'm one of the ones, I think a lot of people that ask for sponsorships does not solely understand those said sponsorships.
Right.
Of what you really need to give back to that sponsor, especially when it comes to that type of investment in you. Because if you're not doing everything you can to boost that said sponsor, it's wasted money.
Yeah. And I agree. And, we were always really lax on the sponsorship things we did, too. I mean, I remember Jim Berg had a deal with Rec Tech Grills at the same time, too, and he always felt like he needed to make a decision. Well, I said, use both. I said, if they're okay with it, I don't care. So you're cooking chicken on a pellet cooker. I don't care. It's a product. Have fun, promote the products. They're just products.
That's right. Well, talking about products, let's go back to the World Food Championship. So how long have you actually been involved with the World Food Championship?
Since the very first year. We were in Las Vegas, was that 12 years ago, I think now?
I think we were there.
Yeah.
The first year was there, or was it the second year? Because how many years was it in Vegas?
It was in Vegas for 3 years. 1 year we were behind Bally's in the back parking lot. I think you came the first year we were on Fremont, which was quite an experience. Fremont is an experience in itself.
Yes, it is.
I never thought we'd have to chase homeless people away from stealing the center display platters on World Food Turn-ins, but we did. But
that would be fun to go do again out in Vegas. I mean, it really would.
Vegas was fun. Vegas was fun, too, because there's so many other things to do. I mean, if you're a culinary guy, a foodie person, and Vegas is a place to go because you can have anything you want and it be off the charts good. I think that first year we spent so much money on going out to eat because we had barbecue teams that were family, and we just picked like the best places we come up with. And, dinner for 3 or 4 or 5 is, $1,200. And,
Yes,
I mean, it's like, wow, but it was good.
Yep.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep.
We spent a lot more than we made. That is for sure.
Yeah, I think that was everybody's problem out there.
Yeah.
It was pretty. I know some of the people I were with, we got there and never checked into the room, and I watched one guy lose $10,000 on the card table.
Yep.
Like literally, I was down $3,500 at the time.
Golden
when we
nugget.
Checked in the room, but I got my money back within 2 hours.
Well, I remember getting a phone call at 2 a.m. from, I shall remain nameless, that was up like $10,000. I literally got dressed and came down, and he was down $10,000 by the time I got downstairs. And it didn't take me long to get there, so he was rolling pretty deep.
Vegas is wild.
Well, I remember the time we were there. I mean, we've talked about we were there too long. I mean,
yeah, you got to get in and get out of Vegas. Well, we looked at each other. We were in a club at like the top of the Rio.
It was
on
the top of the Rio.
100th floor.
Yeah.
I mean, and we had got in this place, and we were like there, and somehow this bachelorette party wound up with us partying. And we looked at each other like it's 1-something in the morning.
It was like 4.
Was it 4?
It wasn't 1.
And I'm like,
I got to be up in 2 hours.
Yeah, we got to go to
I got to get
bed.
out of here.
Why are we here?
You don't realize it.
Yeah.
It was just crazy.
You don't know what time it is there.
It gets away from you quick.
We had 24-hour limo service. It was pretty wild what we was
fun.
dealing with out there at the time.
And, Fremont Street, we were there 2 years. That was, to me, some of the best years because we stayed in the D, which is not a 5-star by any means, but it was literally right there.
It was kind of weird. I thought they had exotic dancers like over the crap tables and the blackjack tables. It was kind of wild.
It was very old school Vegas. I mean, I think we could have gone to Binion's across and probably been a little older school, but it was very old school.
Well, we stayed.
We ate at a restaurant there, but we didn't stay there. We stayed at the Golden Nugget.
The Nugget next door. Well,
see, the year we were at Bally's, I'd lived in California for 10 years, and one of my friends was the VP of marketing for MGM Group. So we'd go to Mandalay Bay, and she'd give us, upgraded rooms and stuff. So we went over a lot. So Vegas was not a new spot for me. But we stayed at Mandalay Bay in the first year, and that's why we spent so much money because we were eating at Charlie Palmer's and, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. So what's the biggest accomplishment you've had at the WFC?
We made top 10s 3 or 4 times. We ran World Food for the first 5 or 6 years. We ran Kitchen Arena. We ran everything except barbecue, which was neat because that barbecue family kind of got to bring in a whole new culinary group of friends and chefs and caterers and, some of those folks that travel that really are, masterful with food presentation and flavor profiles. It is really crazy what some people can do on a stove under a tent in an hour and a half.
It really is at some of this stuff what some people can pull off is pretty wild.
Yeah. Even barbecue now at World Food has morphed into much more chefy, much more culinary, very much more artistic. Presentations are off the chart compared to what most barbecue guys are used to. It's a whole lot more to it. And you don't just see 6 chicken thighs turned in anymore. You don't see, 8 rib bones turned in. It's just that it's elevated so much, which is, it's good. It's just different.
Yeah. We haven't been, honestly, in quite a while.
Yeah. It's been a hot minute since we've been in the World Food.
Yeah. Because it started in Vegas and then it went to Kissimmee.
Yeah.
And then it went to Orange Beach and then it went to Dallas.
I didn't go when it went to Dallas.
I was going to say, I think our last was Orange Beach.
Dallas was a good setup because Kitchen Arena was inside. It was a little more controlled than being outside. Stages were inside and all that. Barbecue was, of course, out. But
I love Orange Beach when it was.
Orange Beach was the only drawback I saw to Orange Beach is it was off season, so restaurants were closed at 6 p.m. And there wasn't a lot for us to be able to do outside of World Food. But Orange Beach was a great setup too because everybody was right there.
Yeah,
it was great.
And Indianapolis looks like it's gonna be great. I saw blueprints the other day. And it's at the fairgrounds at the State Farm Building, so it's gonna be great.
I bet that will be big. Yeah, that is a big fairgrounds there.
Yeah,
very big.
And the community has gotten behind it. The state of Indiana has gotten behind it. So I think you're going to see a whole different animal with World Food than you have in the past. I think you'll see a lot more public activations and more interaction for the public and more stuff. Because unfortunately, in the past, it's kind of been for the competitors.
I was gonna say,
and not really anything else.
Yeah.
Heath and I were talking before that the years we were on Fremont Street, we probably had more public there than any other year, but they weren't really there for that.
They weren't invited. They were just there. Yeah, it's never been a public event.
Yeah,
really.
And World Food's morphing into an incredible thing anyway with the strategic partnership with IMG, which is a huge group. They formed WFC Holdings, and what their long-term plans are huge. TV will get involved and all that. That's what this is about. So.
Do you see them carrying events all over the country before it's said and done?
I do. I think the famous days of barbecue rounds and some of these are just a start. You've got some of the largest food events in the country that IMG either owns or are part of. You're going to see all those feed into World Food. I think you'll probably see some super regional type things sprout up with World Food over the next few years. I think there's some great potential to give people an opportunity. There's contests, but some of them are not all inclusive for people to be able to do. Pillsbury has the baking thing every year, and there's some pie contests and some other stuff. But I think you'll see some of these bring a lot of different niches together.
That sounds really interesting for sure. So tell us about your First Club marketing kind of aspect company. What all does it do?
So we started in health club business, and we were doing marketing for health clubs. Different samplings and different. Johnson & Johnson was a client. We've been associated with some of the largest brands in the country at various times for various different things. But it started in the health club business, basically with not only ownership but consulting and other things in that niche. And as we morphed out of that, it really became food and brand based. Mostly what I do now is food and brand stuff. It's sponsorships for events, sponsorships for organizations, brand activations, lots of different things.
What made you want to get into that?
I think I've always been a salesman to some extent. Even as a child, I think I was always a salesman. But I just enjoy it. I enjoy good relationships with people, and I think that's the key to all this is mutually beneficial relationships. I mean, I have brands I've worked with for 15, 20 years, and it's because I won't put them in places that are not good for them or that could potentially not be good for them, and vice versa. So.
Just not sticking them anywhere.
Yeah, it's not about, to me, it's not, sponsorship, I've always said, is kind of a bad word anyway. I look at that like Little League in the 80s where your dad paid for a banner to hang on the fence. I've always called it partnerships because I think it has to be mutually beneficial to everybody.
I agree.
I mean, we've talked at great length about this over the years, but I never understood the, people that would reach out and just want to check. And barbecue's going to hate me for this, but barbecue teams are probably the worst. They don't really understand what a sponsorship or a partnership really is. They just want a bunch of free product and we'll put your sticker on my trailer. And that may have worked 20 years ago, but that's not where it's at now. There has to be a lot more.
It's a little bit different. A lot of people does not understand the amount of, digital marketing nowadays has turned into backlinks and links and, people shopping through links and all that kind of stuff and referrals and things like that. And some of these guys have a problem with even, let's face it, tagging properly on social media. They can't figure out how to pull up just a proper tag.
Well, and as a brand like you two, it's hard to spend all this time educating people what they need to do when there's unfortunately so many options out there of people that already know how to do it.
Well, for us, we tried to create like a SOP document when we onboard somebody as a brand or a partnership, and
that sounds great if they follow it.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. The way I look at it is, if you don't follow it, you really don't get invited back the next year. You kind of get shown the side, and we don't have a lot that we have to do that to. But if we have to correct you more than 3 times, I'm not saying you get a little check on the board over here, but when I go down that list next year, my memory is pretty decent. I remember that stuff.
And I think a lot of barbecue teams and content creators, which is a whole, we'll talk about the subject another time, but I don't think they really understand the ability to track things either. Because I used to joke about charcoal brands and some of the and McCormick spices. I did a bunch of stuff with McCormick spices, and I don't think they understand the ability that these really big players have to know everything that you posted, everything that's gone on down to, one letter in your post. And when you approach somebody, it doesn't take, when somebody approaches you for sponsorship, it doesn't take much to figure out, what their online presence really is. And if it's beneficial or not, and a lot of everything now is so much online. I mean, it's content creation. It's just like you said. I mean,
it's not always about followers. It's about impressions and video views and things like that as well. But it's also about being active and engaging with your followers
and how you engage. That's the other thing, because I mean, if you're not having conversations and interacting, it's not. I mean, you can't just put up a video and then have everybody say, "Well, what butter are you using?" and then them never get a response. I mean, you have to interact and engage, or it doesn't help it get legs.
Well, it's about building a brand community, I guess, more or less.
Yeah.
What you're in my opinion, what you're trying to say, and we do our best to try to respond to 90% of every comment. So do we miss one every once in a while? Of course, we're human.
Sure.
But we do our best to try to do that.
And it takes work. I mean, I will tell any barbecue team, if you really want to gain sponsorships or partnerships with brands, you have to be willing to put some work in, because it's not going to be as simple as you may think it is. And just because you only have 100 followers doesn't mean you're not a good fit. It's all on how you use it and where it spreads and what you're willing to do. But, take some time if you're a barbecue team and think about it and really do your research. Figure out how to do some things.
Well, a lot of teams also they cook on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Fridays. So they only make a post on Friday saying they're at a contest, or Saturday they turn in box a trophy.
See, those are the guys that should be posting when they're trimming meat on Tuesday, when they're making injections on Wednesday.
That's right. You got to get a full post when you're cooking dinner on Monday night.
Yep.
When you get home, and it's so much more that people can do, and they don't realize how much more they can do.
Well, and like a brand like yours, cooking hamburgers at home for your family, that's content in itself. I mean, it maybe not be
I could do a better
competition
job than I
barbecue
do now.
related. Well, it's hard when you got things going on. I mean, I struggle with doing the things I need to do, but we're getting that back on track now. So.
I think all of us have those. We were joking yesterday with Malcolm and Rochelle, and it's almost like live and die by a calendar nowadays for the business
multiple
world.
calendars.
And I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah.
I got to be here this day. I got to be here that day. I got a meeting now, a meeting then.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to plan things out as much as our calendars stay full.
Sure.
And I know working for ourselves, just like you, everybody's like, "Oh, you got time to do whatever."
Oh yeah,
you
being
really
self-employed, you're just off. You can play golf on Wednesdays. It's not a big deal.
Not that easy.
Yeah.
I can't even go to lunch some days with some certain people that call because no, I've got other stuff going on. I have to be back. I've got this. I got that. I can't.
I always use the word hustle, and I use it in a positive sense because I think to be self-employed, you have to have that hustle mentality where you're always doing what has to be done to get everything to the next level.
I think that's just entrepreneurship.
It is. It's
general,
but
sure.
I mean, people, and I think some people don't have that. I think you're either kind of born with that mentality or you're not. I don't think you can teach that.
Well, there's a lot of them entrepreneurs out there.
There's a bunch of them.
a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And you can chime that word on, and I probably chopped it up, but there's a bunch of people that want to be in that position.
Yep.
That won't put in they don't understand it. It's 10 years of sacrifice or hard 5 years of sacrifice, depends on what you're doing.
Yep.
And there's no going back on that. You have to be dedicated.
I always laugh at like the Country Music Awards for Newcomer of the Year who's been around for 25 years. Guys like that. I remember the Kentucky Headhunters won Newcomer of the Year in the late 80s or early 90s, and they'd been around for 30 years. I mean, all of them were 50 years old. So, I mean, it's people don't realize,
Down at Dumas Walker's.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And a bottle of skeet.
That's it. I remember that. I mean, that was a good song.
Yeah.
For
But people
sure.
don't realize it. There aren't many overnight successes, at least not real, true, factual overnight successes.
That's right. Well, talking about overnight successes, let's talk about one of the most controversial topics, in my opinion, that kind of happened in barbecue this year, the Memphis in May and Smoke Slam deal.
I think that's way above my pay grade.
I mean, I do too, don't get me wrong. I'm cooking Memphis in May, but I really hate those two contests are going head-to-head same weekend.
And, we talked about it briefly before this. I don't know what happened. I don't know what the reasons are. I don't know what people's thinking were. I hate that anybody's upset, especially barbecue teams and barbecue family. And I use barbecue family as brands and judges and, everybody engulfed in it. It's unfortunate anybody's upset. I don't know the choices that were made. There's a lot of money being spent on both sides to try to make both events successful. I hope that they both are successful. I want to think that there's no ill will on either side, but I don't know.
I kind of with you. I would like to feel that way. I almost want to like getting them. I want to be in a mediator and get them both at a table.
Yeah, I
at
kind of
both
feel like
ends
we
and
need
go,
an intervention or
"Hey,
something and say,
what are you doing?" And one of them
Yeah.
pop off and go slap one of them and then slap the other one and go, "Okay, boys and girls, y'all got to work this out before we get up from this table. You're not getting up."
Yeah.
And I don't mean anything bad by that, but it's like, yeah, I understand two events are trying to host or whatever. Memphis May's been around longer, and you got a new event, and they got money behind them, and I totally get all that, and I hate the ambiance leaving the park and the river, but that ship has sailed. It will never host a world-class 150-plus team event down there ever again.
Just the way they redid the park is not the way it was, so it will never be like it was. Yeah. No matter what event is there,
it'll be a barbecue contest, so don't get me wrong.
Sure.
50, 60, 75
I think it's a great setting. Being on the river, other than when we get evacuated for tornadoes and things like that. But other than that, it's a great setting for a barbecue contest. I just, like I said, I don't know all the reasons behind choices of dates. And there's a lot of prize money with both of them. There's no doubt. There's a lot of money being given away that weekend.
I wish that old Heath could go cook all three categories of Smoke Slam.
Yeah,
But I've got to go to the World Championship just because it's the World Championship. No other reason besides that. It's nothing to do with anything else for me besides I want to win the Grand Champion at Memphis in May.
Sure.
It's nothing.
Sure.
Nothing else. It's
that's one of those bucket list things that you've had since I've known you. So
it's nothing. I've been close a couple times. You know, when you're cooking against that degree of competitiveness down there and teams, and you got Myron and Chris Lilly and Tuffy and, you know, a lot of other respectful cookers, you know, all the local guys here.
Yeah.
And everybody takes that as a personal vendetta that cooks, you know, Memphis-style contests. And then you got all the big dogs that come in, and they've won Memphis and May several times.
But you know, there's big dogs coming to Smoke Slam that weekend too that have made a choice, and what made them make that choice, I don't know. I mean, that was their deal. But I mean, I in full disclosure, World Food is sanctioning all the ancillaries for Smoke Slam. Now, before anybody gets angry and mad and upset, they were going to get sanctioned by somebody.
That's the same way the MBN said, hey, somebody's got to sanction the contest. They're just paying us to run the scoring system. So we're not putting on the event. The event was going to happen anyway.
That's exactly right.
I full on respect that. Somebody got to get paid.
You know, in my meetings with Mike McLeod, when we were talking about this early on, there'd been conversations with Memphis in May about doing stuff too. So, I mean, WFC is a free agent in this. So, I mean, the whole thing is, and MBN is a free agent.
MBN is free agent.
And, you know, Kevin Growth with MIM.
Heath is a free agent too.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I think everybody, and it's business. I mean, if somebody approaches MBN about sanctioning contests and wants to pay for it to come in and help them, and it fits into their parameters and their scheduling, everything else, they're going to do it. I mean, it's a business. I don't think anybody is intentionally trying to, at least not on our end, for sure. We're not trying to hurt Memphis in May. I love Memphis in May. It's one of my favorite contests of all time. If I'm there in May, I'll go back and forth between contests just to visit friends and family and hang out.
I mean, I really wish I could, but with everything going on at Memphis in May and the kind of stuff we're doing, there's no way for me to kind of get down there and back. I really wish it was, because I'd love to go interview some of the sponsored teams that I sponsor that are cooking Smoke Slam.
Sure.
So I'm 100% behind as far as the event goes and teams cooking it, because, heck, I want one of our sponsored teams or somebody using our products to try to win it.
You know, somebody's going to walk away with $75,000, because the reality is, if you win GC, you've won a category. Yep. So, I mean,
you know,
it'd be hard not to say, hey, I'm going to go cook ribs.
And I know around here there are several teams that can pull off multiple category wins that understand that.
And I think there's, I don't know for sure because I've not seen Memphis and May's list, but I'm sure there's teams that have also split up this weekend and are probably cooking both.
There's a few.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me a bit, because, I mean, you start talking about, man, if you can win $75,000 on a weekend,
if the judging was not at the same times, I'd be there. There's no way for me to make it work.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you know, unfortunately, money's a motivating factor to a lot of folks, and that's a lot of motivation that's being thrown out at both contests. Because Memphis in May is not a slacking, no money contest. That's big money too.
No, they give away upwards of $140,000, I think, something like that. I mean, there is a money difference. I mean, to me, it's just about the trophy.
Yeah. Well, you've got history. I mean, there's, you know, many decades of history. I mean, people don't realize that a lot of KCBS was founded out of Memphis in May too. You know, the founders of KCBS came out of Memphis in May. And people don't know that.
A lot of people don't know that.
No, and people don't know the split of MIM and MBN years ago, when MIM didn't really want to be sanctioning stuff anymore. So
when they just walked away, the reps just said, hey, we're going to form our own deal.
Yeah, so people don't really know all the history. Barbecue's intertwined in a lot of ways. People just don't realize it.
Memphis in May started in 1978, the year I was born.
Yep.
And so that's kind of means something to me too. I mean, that's 78.
So were they, and I don't even know the history, were they the first like sanctioning body of barbecue really? Or was there?
I don't know if there was a sanctioning body before MIM or not. I mean, they were self-sanctioned at that point because they had not even done other contests for the first MIMs.
You know, that's a great question.
That is a good question. I don't know.
I wonder if were there any other sanctioning bodies in that before 78.
I don't know. I don't know when IBCA was formed out in Texas. They've been around for a while.
I bet that it's on up there.
Like we said, Texas is a whole different animal. I mean,
I think you're going to make me get on Google now and start.
I mean, the reality is
you may not be able to find
there's
that on
probably
Google.
800 contests in Texas a year that are sanctioned by somebody.
Yeah, you're right.
And really, I mean, KCBS does a few of them, but what is it, Suncoast or Gulf Coast or whatever that is, and IBCA and CBA are the big ones, and they're doing hundreds, you know, each.
It's pretty wild. You can drink beer and judge barbecue in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, at Houston, they had beer.
You can drink beer and judge barbecue in Memphis too. You didn't know?
Well, I mean, you can, but they don't have.
You're not supposed to as a judge
for the judges like they do in Texas.
But you think those judges aren't drinking beer? I'm just saying.
I know some of them.
I know what I've seen.
There's been some KCBS judges have been caught doing stuff over the years too.
Well, some of them love them takeaway coolers.
But are they sitting at the table?
That's a whole nother subject.
I'm not saying they're not sitting at the table drinking beer while they're judging barbecue. That's not what.
Well,
I'm
saying. in some of the WFC things, especially if it's a brand related deal, we've let them drink at the table because a lot of times it's the local pro basketball player and the weatherman and the CEO of the corporation, and one of the sponsors happens to be a whiskey or somebody, and they're rolling out a special drink, and or turn-ins. Some of the turn-ins on silver platters often have something with them.
That's true there.
I will tell you, I have learned that if you've gone through chemotherapy, you don't need to judge barbecue because your taste buds really change.
Really?
Yeah. John Hale asked me to come judge a thing in a couple of weeks. I said, I'm not going to do it. He goes, why? I said, because it's not fair. I said, I'd heard that before and I said, it's just not fair. I said, it just would not be fair to a team. I would hate to be a team and know that it wasn't, that I had judged.
Well, I guess I just have one more question.
Yeah.
What really made you take a stance on sponsoring me with a smoker back 10 years ago?
I met you and I talked to you. To me, sponsorship was not about, at that point especially, it wasn't about impressions or engagements or followers or anything. It was about people. I cared as much about who you were Monday through Thursday as who you were on Friday and Saturday, and probably more. You were a stand-up guy. You were straightforward, which is a little unusual in today's world.
I'm more straightforward on some people than they want me to be.
Well, I am too. That's why I tell people I'm kind of a you love me or hate me kind of thing. But you'll always know where I'm coming from. And that, to me, is priceless. I wish the world was like that. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
But that's really what it was about. I mean, Tommy Houston, the people we got involved with, to me, were solid, good people. And that's really what it was about.
Well, I just appreciate everything you ever done for me. I know you built me multiple smokers over the years, have catered to me, brought smokers over, and done things you probably shouldn't have done, went above and beyond. And I just want to say personally, thank you.
I appreciate it. I thank you for everything you've done, too. I mean, it's relationships. I mean, you and Candace become friends. I mean, Christmas parties and text messages back and forth and things like that. We've built a relationship over the years that I don't see going anywhere. I mean,
I don't either, and I really hope that we can continue this ride of barbecue and maybe wind up on a bigger stage before it's over with for all of us, and keep planting these small seeds everywhere. Maybe everything turns into something really, really nice for all of us.
Keep plugging away. That's all you can do.
Plugging away.
Yeah.
Well, Randall, I thank you for coming on the podcast today and shooting the cue with us.
Yeah.
It's always good to catch up with you. And one last thing before we jump off here, you've kind of got some exciting news. You've got your first grandchild on the way.
I have my first grandchild, and we just found out it's a boy. So it's and my daughter-in-law comes from a family of all girls. So on that side, they've not had boys, which is funny because I have no idea how to deal with it. I have two boys, so it's kind of funny to watch her scramble and panic a little bit. But we've got a baby boy coming in September.
So spoiled, I'm sure.
He's going to be rotten. We're already buying stuff. It's funny. My father goes, "What color pony does he want?" It's like it's going to be bad. So
yeah, I got a feeling all the girls the same sentence for that.
I had always wanted a girl. I ended up with two boys, and I know I would have spoiled her rotten. So I'll have a grandchild that's a girl at some point between the two boys. So we'll save all that spoiling for the grandbaby.
Well, Randall, I wish you the best with family and everything, and ain't nothing like getting that kind of good news like that with your first grandchild.
Always.
So thank you for coming on and shooting the cue with us, as always. We'll see y'all next week on another episode.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shootin The Que podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels or through our website. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review if you enjoyed the show. Until next time, keep shooting the cue.